WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, X, and our website, www.wvtcdetroit.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users.
Hello. It's Monday at 4 o'clock, so it must be the Community Bell Show. Thank you so much for joining us this afternoon. You know, we have such special people, and I'm not going to do all my talking I usually do today. I'm just going to say thank you for coming. Thank you for being with us. And my special guest today, Mr. The very special Mr. Hester Wheeler, former Assistant Secretary of State, his former executive director of NAACP, a lot of other former. However, best part is currently my friend.
I am happy to be your friend too, Edna Bell, Madam Commissioner for Life.
Thank you. Yeah. Well, we're so happy to have you, Hester. Yeah. And I wanted to have you today because we've got something special coming up this week that people need to know about. Yeah. We have an election coming, but this week starts early voting, and everyone needs to know about that.
That's especially significant. And as you know, in 2018, Michigan voters delivered a slew of new voting rights, and early voting is one of them. No excuse absentee voting. September 26th is exactly 40 days or so before Election Day, and that's when, by law, we're required to start mailing absentee ballots. So that's your first opportunity to begin the vote from September 27 all the way through November 5. And we're encouraging people to vote early and make sure your friends, neighbors, your relatives are voting. Make a plan to go after. I've got a list on my phone, for example. I call it 25 under 25. These are all the young people in my family under 25, and they get regular messaging from me, and they especially like voting seasons because I'll go get them or I have them meet me somewhere for lunch or dinner. But we sit down and literally study the ballot and make sure we know the issues. And I recognize that we have to go after certain voters differently.
Yes.
You know, you and I came out of a generation where we had a certain consciousness.
Absolutely.
We were proud.
And we just did.
We just did. But we talked about it everywhere we went.
Right.
We talked about it in church.
We did it, and everybody we
talked
did it.
And we had mock elections in schools. All of those things helped prepare us. I was just saying to somebody
the other day, we voted when we were in high school.
Voting
machines were in the lobby at Northern High School, and we voted.
And I know that our current city clerk and our county clerk and our Secretary of State, we're doing a lot of things in high schools all over again because we recognize there's a gap. But
the other thing that does, it gives us a prediction of what's to come.
That's exactly right.
And whether those parents are engaged or not.
That's exactly right.
Because they could pretty much predict the winners of the elections based on what happened in those high schools.
That's very true. There's a trend. So in addition to no excuse absentee voting, you talked about early voting. Legally, it's 9 days. 2 Sundays. That's especially significant about those 9 days. Those final 2 Sundays before Election Day, they are especially significant. And the reason I say that is because many of us are working. We're trying to target at least 50 churches to take their parishioners to an early voting site immediately following Sunday service. That's unique, and that's a new strategy. And that's especially significant. We've got nearly 50 churches now that are committed to use at least one page of the bulletin to put some new information. A lot of folks don't know exactly what early voting means. So what if one page of your bulletin described early voting? A lot of people don't really know what same-day voter registration really means. So what if one page in your bulletin described same-day voter registration? A lot of people don't know ex-offenders, returning citizens. Very often, they don't know that their right to vote in Michigan is automatically restored.
That's right.
So we've got a lot of ongoing education to do, Commissioner Edna Bell. So there is a relationship between the number of times you touch a voter, the number of times you talk to a voter, the number of times you entertain or encourage, and the likelihood that they will participate.
Yes.
And I don't know what the exact science is. Some people say 5, 6, 7. Some people say 8 to 10 times. A lawn sign, a radio message, a robocall, something in the mail. All of those touches add up, and they increase the likelihood that people will participate in the process. So I appreciate you hosting this important conversation, Edna Bell, because sometimes not easy to measure the impact, but it will go a long ways. I understand we're going to be on YouTube also.
Yes.
Oh my God. So I'm going to take this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to post it on my little
There
website.
you go. Exactly.
And I'll post it on my Facebook page so other people can see that we're talking about early voting.
And
we're talking
we've got to talk about it
over and over again.
We've got to talk about it all the time. This is so important.
Over and over.
I know people here say this all the time. Oh, this is the most important election of your lifetime. Well, folks, this really is.
It really is.
This time,
yes,
it really is.
It really is.
It really
well,
is.
And honestly, I am the eternal optimist. I believe things can work. I know God's goodness, and I know, and I've watched so many. I got you.
You got, because you see, I think that this whole setup was a God setup.
See, look at you.
Because
go ahead, Madam Deacon.
Joe Biden.
Yes. Ooh.
Joe Biden,
you got yes, ma'am. I'm about to
love him, but Joe Biden. Who would have thought he would have appeared in a debate and not have been able to really participate? And after that, who would have thought that he would have stepped down? That is unprecedented.
So now let me go spiritual on you, if you don't mind. There's a concept called Kairos.
Okay.
Kairos. And a Kairos, this is a Kairos moment. That's when the right person at the right time and divine providence all converge. Nelson Mandela was a Kairos moment.
Yes.
He broke the back of apartheid. He single-handedly exercised the deepest level of selflessness and went to jail for 25 plus years, but he broke the back of apartheid. Rosa Parks was a Kairos moment.
Yes.
She single-handedly broke the back of segregation in public transportation. Shirley Chisholm was a Kairos moment because she was not afraid to step out and put herself on Front Street like that at a time where racism was so pervasive. Most of us were barely voting. She says, I'm running for president.
Yes.
You hear what I'm saying?
Yes.
So
I'm telling you,
Kamala Harris is a Kairos moment because of what Joe Biden did. You remember all of the stress we were living prior to Mr. Biden making that decision?
Yes.
We knew that Mr. Biden was going to be a heavy lift.
And
we were trying to explain it away.
Heavy lift.
Yes.
We weren't going to be able to pick him up. It was not just a heavy lift.
Yeah, we knew it was going to be a heavy lift. But look at now. And then it also came at the same time where the first so-called assassination attempt happened.
Yes.
And the Republicans were having their big convention. And so they got a big convention. They're in the news every day. An assassination attempt had just happened, and Mr. Biden had just bombed in the debate. I'm saying, wow, we're in trouble. And but look at the relief we feel now. This is a Kairos moment.
Energized.
This is a Kairos moment. So I am saying to all of you who are thinking about what will you do? How do you get engaged? You got to seize the moment. You've been inspired. Your spirituality has been engaged. And I still believe in a place called hope. You remember when you remember Mr. Clinton's famous speech? This is one of those moments where you have every reason to get excited.
Yes.
But you got to do something.
You got to do this.
You got to do something.
Excited.
You got to do something.
Expensive energy.
I believe, so this is a moment where hope and history have come together.
Yes.
We have an opportunity to elect our first woman president who happens to be a Black woman. And we have every reason to be excited and proud of that.
Who in the world would have
thunk it? Who would have thunk it?
Who would have thunk it that we would be at this place at
Isn't this wonderful? It's a great feeling.
And that's why I simply say, this is a God-sent moment.
It's a God-sent moment.
We just have to be ready to accept it.
Why are we uncertain, though? Isn't that a reflection of the race issues? And
absolutely. No question.
Why are we uncertain? This ought to be a crystal clear pathway to victory.
Yes.
She's uniquely qualified. Yes. She's the best qualified. She's the best looking. Yes. She's the most articulate. Yes. She's the best educated. She's got the right kinds of experiences. Yes. She's got the pedigree against what's he been convicted of? All kinds of stuff. Are you serious?
Yeah, that's what's so amazing.
We're having a debate with a person who is a convicted felon.
How is it close? How is it?
Well, this is a unique moment in history, and I'm saying the best way to predict the future, if you want to overcome all of the ravages of history, You've got to fight for this. Every bit of
Every bit.
progress we've enjoyed,
Every
it was
bit.
based on a fight. None
That's
of it
right.
have come easy.
Didn't come easy.
And he's talking about making America great. He's talking about preserving white privilege.
Oh, and
He's talking
going
about-
back.
And going
These are
back. He's talking about
back.
restoring. And then I keep seeing numbers are saying 40% of America is pretty solidly behind this
Isn't
guy.
that amazing?
Isn't
Yeah.
that amazing?
And you know what? I think it's fear.
That's what it is.
I think it's fear
You know it's
of
fear.
the loss of power.
But you know what? There's enough for everybody. This
exactly.
land, we live in a
because
we live
I
in a
have
place.
some power doesn't take anything.
That's
from
exactly
you.
right. That's exactly right. But and there are enough resources for everybody. But we've got to fight to make sure the resources are distributed equitably, and that's a fight worth having.
Yes.
We ought not suffer the level of poverty that we suffer. We ought not suffer the level of homelessness that we suffer. We ought not suffer the disparities in education that we suffer. But some folks think if you get it, it's taking something from me.
And
When
this isn't
in fact
true.
there are enough resources for all of us. So
absolutely.
and you know my commitment as first of all, I'm committed to going to my grave empty, Edna Bell, just like you. I'm gonna stay in this
That's
game.
right.
As long
I
as
think
there's a fire burning across our community, I'm gonna have a bucket.
I'm gonna be right here
trying to put some of it
exactly.
out.
Exactly.
But my big commitment is to keep fighting until we win. And we've won some significant.
We have won some significant battles. Significant. We have got to fight. You know, part of what I really want to do also is get young people engaged. You know, my oldest grandson just graduated from high school.
Cranston.
Yeah, Grant.
Oh, Grant, you're older. Okay, yeah.
Grant.
Right.
He's at Florida A&M University.
Oh, FAMU.
Yes,
Go
he's
right
at
ahead,
FAMU.
Sir Grant.
And so Mr. Grant is going to be my college connection. So
That's
I'm going to have
awesome,
him do
good.
a show.
You
I'm
should.
going to have him on the show
That's
to talk
awesome.
about first-time voting for these 18-year-olds,
That's
these young
especially
people
significant.
who are now old enough to vote.
Yes.
He voted in the primary before he left for school in
Get
August.
down.
Yes, and he's got his absentee ballot.
That's right.
But what I want to do is have him talk to all those his young colleagues
Yeah.
that are in freshmen
And-
to talk about voting and those who don't understand absentee vote because he grew up with it. He knows
That's exactly right.
Talk about that, and so I'm going to have him.
Well,
do
I
a
think it
long-distance
matters
show
too. I
to
think
talk
that
about
I think
that.
it matters. Our daughter is 28. She lives in Washington D.C.
Mhm.
So she just went online. She went to Michigan.gov/Secretary of State. You can request that your absentee ballot be mailed to wherever you are.
He already has his.
Oh, he already
Yeah.
got that.
And so I want him to
That's as
talk to
good as it
his
gets.
because there are a lot of young people from Michigan
Yes,
down at Florida.
no question
A&M.
about that.
And
Yeah,
he's going to be like that connection. Say, okay, folks,
that's exactly
everybody
right.
got your absentee ballot. Let's do this. Let's make
So
sure we do that.
As a college student, his permanent residence is still here in Detroit.
Yes.
So what young people need to know who are away at college
Mhm.
is that you can have your absentee ballot mailed to wherever you are right now.
And
So
that's another piece of
significant.
information
That's-
we need people to know. You got young people that just left here going to college.
That's right.
Make sure they know
Make sure you know.
that absentee ballot could be mailed to them where they
So
are.
in the
and they can
five-
send it right back.
And in the 5.5 years I spent working with the Secretary of State, we partnered with the National Center for Civic Participation.
Mm.
We've got one of the baddest, most resourceful websites, bar none.
Really?
I mean, it's resource rich. And if you go to michigan.gov/vote, everything you need to know about your voter registration status from the day you actually cast your vote. We've got a ballot tracking system. We can say you voted on September 29. We receive your ballot on September 28. Your ballot is in the process on the day we count your ballot. We tell you everything you need to know.
Did you hear that, everybody?
Everything you need to go.
Michigan.gov/vote.
It's a tremendous resource. We're saying we've got the power, but if you don't vote,
use it.
you don't use your
That's
power.
right.
And I don't believe anybody should live beneath their privilege.
Oh, absolutely.
And when you don't vote, you go
don't-
beneath your privilege.
And the other piece of that is, if you don't vote, you don't have a right
To
say
complain,
anything
right?
about anything to anybody.
Yeah.
You can't
Yeah.
complain if you don't vote.
Well,
Don't come to me telling me anything
and-
about your problem if you didn't vote.
And there's a relationship between politics and economics. And you and I have
Absolutely.
lived that. We've watched the relation.
Mhm.
We've watched the growth of Black businesses. We've watched
Yes.
the improvements in education
Mhm.
based on who we elect. I remember when Coleman Young first won, I watched the proliferation of Black businesses. All of a
Yes.
sudden, African-American owned businesses had an opportunity. Coleman used to say, if any developer came to town, I want to make sure you're partnering with African-American contractors.
Absolutely.
You follow me?
Absolutely.
If you get some, everybody gonna get
Everybody
some.
gets something. Interesting. We were at, I think it must have been when Coleman was it was an event that they were having for him,
Yeah.
and it outlined and listed all the black millionaires he had.
I think I
Remember
remember
that?
some of that.
And,
Yeah.
and some of the
Yeah.
people didn't even know.
Didn't even know.
Yeah.
They were out of there.
Yeah,
Oh
they
my
were out
God.
of
And
there.
black people go very discreet when they
Yes,
start making money. They don't
that's
say
right.
nothing, right?
That's right.
They just they go dark.
They go dark.
All of a sudden you don't see them.
And now you've got this big picture on,
Yeah,
on
but we need to be
screen
able to tell
of
that
all-
story.
our young people need to know.
We need to be able to tell
that story.
And our vehicle to economic empowerment has been politics
Yes.
in a lot of ways.
Yes.
We got to have the right people in place.
Mhm.
That's why it does matter who you elect as governor and attorney general and secretary
Absolutely.
of state, and especially mayor and now president.
Yes.
I love all of the things this current vice president is articulating
gosh.
about opportunities and expanding the middle class and
Yes.
the development of new jobs and the dismissal of student loans and
all of that.
all of those issues are especially true. The other guy talks about violence. He provokes violence.
That's all he
And
does.
every week now, I hate to
Somebody's
say
trying
it,
to be violent. on
mass shootings. We just had,
Oh.
I think we had at least one this weekend
Atlanta.
in Atlanta.
Yes.
And there was one in the previous week. So it keeps
Yes.
happening. So why would you elect
and
somebody?
children
That's
are the
where I was headed.
perpetrators of some of this.
Why would you, but see, and our young people are afraid not to go to school.
They are.
Why would you
That's
elect somebody
heartbreaking.
who provokes violence?
Who's going
like
to
that?
scare your babies to death?
And don't want to address gun
Mhm.
violence at all. So I think we have an opportunity to make this country great in a new way, but not great again.
No.
Because there ain't no again.
As she says,
We've never-
as Kamala Harris says, we're not going back.
She's awesome.
We
Were
are
you
not
in
going back.
Chicago for the Democratic
No,
National?
I did not
was
go to
there.
the- No.
The energy was off the
I
chain.
watched it, no.
The energy was off the chain. I was in DC last week for the
Mhm. I
Congressional
didn't
Black
know that
Caucus.
either.
But my point is, it is so refreshing to see
Mhm.
the next generation of young people who are
Yes.
trying to figure this public policy and
Yes.
political game out. So I think I'm encouraged about the future. I believe the very, very best way to predict the future is to create it.
You gotta
So it means you
create
got to keep doing something.
Mhm.
You got to
That's
keep
right.
doing something.
Keep doing and keep talking.
And keep talking. No
Now,
problem.
we talked about the 18-year-olds and when they can vote and how
Yes.
they can vote. And we talked about early voting.
Yes.
There are lots of places you can go vote early, everybody.
Yes.
The ones that you know probably most are the Wayne County Community College locations on the east side, on Connor, and on the west side at Outer Drive and downtown on Michigan Avenue,
exactly
and the
right.
one out in Western Wayne County. So there are places you
That's
can go
exactly
vote
right.
wherever you are in this metropolitan area.
And if you go to the City of Detroit elections site, there is a list of early voting sites. Our clerk in the City of
Mhm.
Detroit, Janice Winfrey, does a very good job of
Yes.
educating and reaching out to the community. So I'm just asking people to make a plan, make sure you're educated. And then there's something else significant about why you need to be educated. We've noticed sometimes 20, 30, and sometimes as much as 40% drop off from the top of the ballot to the
Yes.
bottom of the ballot.
Yes.
We've got people running for Supreme Court, for example, whose names will be listed at
on
the
back
at
of
the
the ballot.
back at the
Yes.
very end of the ballot.
Mhm.
You can't just go in and vote straight party, or you can't just go in and vote for people at the top of the
Mhm.
ballot and not go systematically all the way
Yeah,
through.
because the Supreme Court, as I'm sure you all know by now, is really, really important.
That's exactly right.
Fortunately, we've got people on our Supreme Court here in Michigan that understand.
That's exactly right.
Not so true for the U.S. Supreme Court,
Yeah.
but we're talking about the
Or that
Michigan
guy stacked the
Supreme.
U.S. Supreme Court,
Ooh-wee.
didn't he? He
For the
stacked it.
Michigan Supreme Court.
Oh my
Kyra
God.
Harris Bolden, young Black woman
Mhm.
who is a member of the Supreme Court, was appointed by Governor Gretchen Whitmer, is running for election to keep her seat.
She's brilliant too. Rising star.
Yes, she is. So
Absolutely
please,
brilliant.
please
Yeah.
make sure you go to the back of the ballot and vote for Kyra Harris.
And
Bolden.
if you happen to be voting Democrat, it is not enough to just vote straight party
No.
because Supreme Court candidates don't get the benefit
Exactly.
of a straight party
That's
vote.
right. There.
You got to put
Find her name.
you got to fill in the
and
bubble
fill in
next
the
to their
bubble
name.
next to
That's
it.
exactly
Fill in
right.
that bubble
So
next to it.
we've got a lot of issues. I also like to highlight like our Arab American friends. They've got a conversation going on that says they're going to withhold all 140,000 votes until they get peace in the Middle East.
Mm.
First of all, we know we're not going to get a solution between now and November 5.
No.
And first of all, and secondly, we know that there's a history of conflict between the Jewish community and Arab American
And
community.
it didn't just start.
It's
This
not
has been going on for the last 60, 70 years.
and we
So
have
you want us to fix it right now?
right now. Right.
That's
So, but
unreasonable.
the fact that they declared they're going to withhold 140,000 votes, they actually were successful back in
Oh, yeah, I
February
know.
during the presidential
Mhm,
caucus.
mhm.
But and it was a positive exercise in democracy, but it had adverse impacts on
Yes. And
voter
now
participation.
my prayer is that that community will recognize how important it is that they do the right thing.
That's exactly
for
right.
this community.
That's exactly right.
Not just for the Arab American community, for the entire community.
That's exactly right. And the fact that African Americans and Arab Americans have been able to build alliances.
Yes,
When you
yes.
vote against Kamala Harris, you're really voting against the interests of African Americans.
Exactly.
That's the only way to say it.
Uh-huh.
And most people of goodwill want the exact same things. Of course, we want to see peace. Of course, we want to see a two-state solution. Of course, we don't want to see violence. And, we're not saying our pain is any worse than your pain, but we've got tens of thousands of people dying in Haiti right now because of U.S. policy.
Yes.
We've got tens of thousands of people dying in the Sudan right now
Yes,
because of U.S. policy. You follow me? But
So-
I think we've got a better access to a positive solution with Kamala Harris than you have with that other guy.
And so the question is, do you think you'll have a better chance with 45 than you will with the Kamala
That's
Harris?
the question you've got to answer.
That's the question.
Yeah.
And if you think that, help me understand why you think
Help
that.
me to understand
What has
why.
that person done
Yeah.
that would make you believe that that person is going to care about you? He said he's going to deport all of the brown
That's
people.
exactly right.
He said he's going to put a lot of them in
Anybody
jail.
that doesn't look like him,
Yeah. So to help me understand
second-class
how
status.
important
Anybody that doesn't look like him
yes.
or think like him.
Yes.
So we've got a lot of critical reasons to educate. And I would just encourage our friends in the Arab American community to rethink this political moment, to rethink this political strategy. I think they got a better shot.
And they've
at
made their
success.
point. They've made
That's
their
exactly
point,
right.
But understand that we can't fix that war.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right.
We can't fix that. And if truth be told, Benjamin Netanyahu is the one that's keeping this going.
I agree.
Anytime you let that many of your citizens die and you don't send help to the location where they're being slaughtered for hours and hours, and we're not talking about a city that's as big as Detroit. I mean, I can get from the west side to the east side of Detroit, which is bigger than Israel, in less time.
Than it takes to navigate that country.
Let those people
and I don't
die.
understand
And
all the nuances. I don't get it. I don't get it.
Could not
I don't
respond.
get it.
And you knew it was coming. You funded it. You told them to go ahead and give them the money. I just
well, the fact is, there's nothing so sacred that we cannot have a healthy discussion about it. We all agree that a two-state solution and peace are the way forward.
Absolutely. Nobody wants to see those babies being killed and suffering because of food and not housing.
But it's an age-old war.
We don't want to see that, just like we didn't want to see it in Africa and the Sudan and Haiti.
That's
those places. We don't. It's going on in Haiti also right now.
Right now. Since the Bible, that's the point there, Miss Sandy. No question. So we just encourage our Arab American friends to reconsider where their best way forward might come.
Consider the consequences. That's all I want to do. Consider the consequences.
Yeah. So whatever it takes, though. So, Edna Bell, what we've come to understand is voter suppression is just as real now as it has always been. I'm not sure if you saw the recent declaration out of Georgia. Now they're saying you got to count the votes by hand. By
hand.
That's another impediment.
We're going back.
That's another impediment.
He said, make it great again. We're going back.
That's another impediment.
That's what happened in the 30s and 40s.
That's
and
exactly
50s
right. Anything that slows down the process.
Couldn't vote.
I was talking to some of our friends up in Flint very recently, and they were talking about, they were having a discussion about having moved polling places. And the need to do additional education. Anytime you make any kind of changes in the last a couple of months, it has huge impacts.
Absolutely.
Like when I was at the NAACP, that's where we began to learn that the least likely polling place is a police station for Black folk.
Yes. Don't put it in. Don't put it in the police station.
That's the least.
The least like it.
It might be convenient parking. It might be enough space. They got a community
I think
room.
they're safe.
But
and all
Black
that.
folk, it's a good chance.
They're not going.
There's a slice of the Black community who ain't gonna go to that
No,
police
no,
station
no.
because they might have a child support issue, or they might have
whatever.
a whatever.
Or whatever.
So
But they're not going.
We've
there.
been there, but you know there happens to be one polling place in the city of Detroit, the 12th precinct up on 7 Mile near Woodward. That's the only one.
That's the only one. Because,
it's a
and
different
we know
community.
why. It's a different community. It's a different community.
And nobody's ever complained about that. But at one point, we had to debate with the clerk and other people that do not use police stations as polling places. We even had an issue with the Secretary of State in Grand Rapids. We had a Secretary of State branch in the same building as a police precinct. And then we went, and that police precinct was closest to the African American community in Grand Rapids. And we went into the community to have these community discussions. And we said, well, why aren't you guys using that particular branch? They said, well, we don't want to go into a police station to get our driver's license renewed.
Of all things.
Of all things.
Of all things.
You follow me? So we've got to think things like that through. Any changes, we've got to remove unnecessary barriers. Don't make any changes at the last minute.
And they need to think about and talk to the people that it impacts.
That's exactly
don't
right.
just make the decision over
That's
here
exactly
in,
right.
in the conference room.
Nothing for us without us. Nothing for us without
That's
us.
right.
The other voting right that we need to remind people of is drop boxes.
Yes.
We've got a new law that allows for one drop box for every 15,000 citizens. So you will see an ongoing proliferation of drop boxes in Detroit and places like all across the state. You have the right. If your clerk requests, and we've got the resources, and lock boxes, drop boxes are secure. Typically, they have cameras on them, and typically they get cleaned out once or twice a day, depending on how frequently they are used. But between drop boxes and no excuse absentee voting, same day voter registration, those are new voting rights that we encourage residents to take advantage of. And I can't say it often enough. Returning citizens in Michigan, your right to vote is automatically restored. You really don't have to do anything. If you were registered,
just go register.
And we've got a law that says anytime you have an interaction with the Secretary of State's office, if you go in to renew your driver's license or to buy license tabs, you are automatically registered to vote unless you say
don't do it.
Don't do it. You follow me?
They don't know information.
I know.
Power.
I know. But if you go to michigan.gov/vote, you will learn most everything you need to know about Michigan's new voting rights. We'll tell you exactly. We even create a sample copy of the ballot that you will see when you go to the poll.
Oh, wow.
It's online right now.
Trying to make it as easy as we can for you to vote.
So Michigan actually moves from worst to first.
I love it.
I'm telling you, we've got it going on here in Michigan. So we have every opportunity to increase voter participation through education because we've got these new voting rights that are vehicles to progress.
It makes sense.
It makes sense.
Is so important, so important, so important.
But young people have the power. We've got some more statistics that show a couple things. If a young person votes in the first or second opportunity after they become eligible, they become voters for life.
Wonderful.
If they vote in the first or second opportunity, if they miss that first or second opportunity, then it's people like Edna Bell and Hester Wheeler and Miss Sandy over there. We spend the rest of our life chasing that voter. So that's why it's especially significant to go after those younger voters. Get them early. That's why mock elections in high school, conversations and assemblies. You're thinking to host a radio show where you bring young people into the studio. When we talk about voting, you're going to use your grandson as a conduit to
he actually is going to be online because he'll be in Florida.
That's good stuff.
And I'll have
that's
him,
good stuff.
Have his little
so let's take advantage of technology.
Yes,
COVID showed us what we could do, right?
Isn't it
I wish I owned some stock in
Zoom.
Because that thing exploded overnight, didn't it?
Exploded. Yes.
It exploded overnight, and we've not missed the beat. The biggest challenge we've got now is nobody wants to go back to the office.
Now that's the gotta get them back to work.
Yeah,
you gotta get them back.
And I didn't even realize. I know this is a tangent. This is a sidebar, But I didn't realize the relationship between those office buildings and restaurants downtown.
Yes.
I hadn't even thought about it.
Yes. Restaurants are closing.
A lot of them have closed
Yes,
because
people
people aren't going
there.
back. So, but a lot of corporate leaders are they're trying to balance. They say, okay, you got to come to the office at least 2 days or maybe 3 days.
Mhm.
And I just saw where some big corporate leaders say, I want you back 5 days.
Yes. Yeah.
You know, it's probably all those business owners, those restaurants have gotten to them to say, bring your people back to work. You know,
Please bring them back.
tax
Please.
breaks, and
There
you,
go.
my bottom
Please
line has been
bring
impacted.
them back
So,
to work. Okay, folks, we are coming up on the end of the show today. It went so
Are we there?
fast. We're there. But that's not a problem because
That's-
you're coming back.
I'll be back.
You'll be back
Yeah,
because
please.
there's too much to
Please
talk
bring me
about.
back. Yeah.
And I need to have you talk more about just voting, but I also want you to talk about voter protection
Yes.
and what's
Oh,
going
yeah.
to happen and
Okay.
the people that will be at the polls
Yeah.
watching. So we got lots more to
I know
talk
we're out of
about.
time, so I won't say, but we do have an election protection strategy. We're working with lawyers and clergy to make sure your right to vote is respected and protected.
That's what I want.
Thank you.
I want to
Thank
talk
you for
about.
that.
So
Yeah.
we're going to talk about that at length when you come back.
All right, have me back.
We got to talk about this.
I agree.
People need to.
There's a
hear it.
relationship between the number of times people hear things and the likelihood that they
Yes,
act on it. So
yes.
this is so very true.
Yes.
Same day voter registration, no
Yes.
excuse early voting, drop boxes, early voting sites. All of those are a reflection of Michigan's new voting rights.
Yes.
Madam Commissioner Edna Bell,
Thank you so much for
I'm
being here.
pleased to be a part of this.
I
Community
appreciate
Bell.
you. Appreciate you. Thank you, everyone, for listening. This has been the Community Bell Show. Be sure to be with us next Monday, 4:00. It's got to be the Community Bell Show. Our special guest, Hester Wheeler, is with us to talk about voting here in Michigan. And last thing I'll tell you, if you don't vote, don't come to me and say
Don't
something.
fuss.
Anything, don't fuss.
Use your
Don't
power.
ask me about anything because I'm
Use
not
your
listening to you because
power.
you didn't vote.
Use your power.
You have the power. You have the power. We'll see you next Monday at 4:00. Have a great week.
Thank you for listening to Community Bell with your host, former Wayne County Commissioner Edna Bell. This broadcast was brought to you by WVTC Radio Detroit. You can find us on Facebook, YouTube, our website, www.wvtcradio.com, or download our WVTC app from the Play Store for Android users and the App Store for iPhone users. If you've enjoyed this broadcast, tell a friend to tune in. We'll see you next Monday at 4 p.m. Eastern to the Community Bell Show, right here on WVTC Radio Detroit. You're listening to WVTC Gospel Radio Detroit, and we're flowing in the Spirit.